I think we'll go ahead and start. Welcome everybody to one of our Resound Songs of Wisconsin workshops, a collaboration between Wisconsin School Music Association and PBS Wisconsin. And tonight we are going to focus on one section of those, and that is on the Latinx series and all the resources that are there. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the resources online. Skylar is going to help us with a few other additional ideas. And then at the end, I will share some good news about the Resound series as well as other workshops that are coming up. So I'm going to turn it over to Skylar. So welcome, Skylar, and thanks for doing your presentation tonight.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. I know it's a weeknight on a school day and long day of work. So thanks for coming. I'm going to just share my screen so you can see what we got going on here. All right. Like Darren said, I am Skylar Peets. I teach kindergarten through 6th grade general music in Stevens Point, Wisconsin at Madison Elementary School. And I've been doing it. This is my 11th year, I think, in my current school. So, yeah, I had the honor of being part of the Resound team and writing this really amazing curriculum. Just for those of you that maybe don't know what the Resound is, it's an initiative that was taken on by PBS Wisconsin in partnership with the Wisconsin School Music Association. And basically how this came about was there was a statewide survey that went out and listening sessions with music educators. And it was discovered that there was really a need for current, authentic, culturally diverse resources, as well as support in teaching with and about music from different cultures. And so this Resound collection was put together and includes video interviews with current Wisconsin musicians. It also has performances, audio files, curriculum guides to just really bring these diverse cultures and music in our state to the classroom. So it's really exciting. It's something really special to Wisconsin. It's really amazing being able to tell your students that these are people from our own state making music still right now. So yeah, there are 4 different cultures featured in the curriculum: Black American, Hmong, Native American, and Latinx. And we're going to be focusing tonight on our 2 Latinx musicians, which is Juan Martinez and Richard Hildner Armacanqui. So yeah, I will drop quick the link to the Educator guide in the chat, just so if you don't have that, you can be kind of looking at that as we go. I will reference it periodically. So here it is. And these are all available on the Resound website. So really easy to find and use. Yeah, so I'm just gonna quick have you introduce yourselves. I'll stop sharing. But before I do, what I would like to know is just what's your name? What do you teach? Where do you work? And then why did you decide to attend this workshop today? Anyone can jump in.
Hi, I'm Kristen. Kristen Albright. I teach high school band and jazz band and independent study at Watoma High School. And I was just really intrigued with this project when I saw it a couple years ago, but I haven't explored it much yet. So I wanted to learn more about it. And I was especially excited about tonight's presentation because I do have many students that are of the Latin heritage, and I would like to better understand how to serve them and share more of their music with them.
Awesome.
I'll jump in. I'm Kelsey Deuce. I teach 1st through 4th grade at Westview Elementary in Platteville. And I think kind of the same thing. I've heard of the project and just haven't had a lot of time to dig into it. So I was just interested in learning more.
Hey, I'll jump in, I guess. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, my name is Valerie Troxel. I'm an elementary music teacher in Whitewater, and we've had a huge influx of students from the regions that will be discussed tonight. So I'm looking for resources and need as much help as I can get.
You've come to the right place, hopefully. I will do my best. And
Thanks.
I'll give you lots of extra resources too.
And I'm Kathy Bartling, and I'm actually, full disclosure, part of the project. I helped edit some of the things, and I was so impressed with what Skylar wrote and put in here that I wanted to hear more of what she was doing and how she'd progressed from there. And I'm really interested in hearing from the rest of you as well as about what is really useful in this project as you explore it, because I'm a retired music teacher, and so my goal in life now is to remain brain cells moving and remain involved in music education as some sort of support where I can be for those of you who are still in the classroom, because I know I didn't make it through when I was in the classroom without a few little help from my friends. So I'm just excited about the whole project, and I can't wait to hear what Skylar has to say tonight.
All right, sorry, I just got a cheer note from one of the kids here. So, all right, so let us keep going. Again, thank you for being here. I look forward to hearing your unique perspective too on things as we go. There will be opportunities to kind of collaborate and brainstorm ideas together of how you can make this relevant to you and your students, because it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. So, all right. So, just a quick kind of semantics thing. What does the term Latinx mean? The term Latinx, I know I did not know this when I first started this curriculum. I had heard of like Latino or Latina or Latin American. So Latinx was introduced in the early 2000s as a gender neutral term for Latino or Latina, in addition to encompassing those who identify outside of the gender binary, such as those who are transgender or those who are gender fluid. So it's a newer term, but one that is kind of picking up steam and good to know. So another question that comes up sometimes when you're looking at these different cultures is, what's the difference between Hispanic or Latinx culture? Hispanic is often used to refer to people who speak Spanish and or are descended from Spanish speaking populations, whereas Latinx is used to refer to people who are from or are descended from Latin America. And just a quick list of the countries that are currently considered part of Latin America. I know this was helpful for me to kind of wrap my head around it too. It is Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Puerto Rico, Uruguay, and Venezuela. So we're gonna kind of take a sidestep from Latinx culture just for a minute to talk about something called a zine. And zines play a big role in Latin American culture or Latinx culture as a form of expression. There are a lot of really famous Latinx artists that use these. So we're just going to watch this short video that kind of talks more about what they are. And hopefully you can hear my sound. If not, we'll try sharing again. Can you hear it okay? So a little bit more about zines. It is pronounced zine, like short for magazine. It's a self-published mini magazine. They have drawings, words, or photographs in them, usually in a collage style, and they can be written about any topic or idea. They're handmade and then photocopied, and this is a really cheap way to publish things. They're more informal than a regular book, and usually less than 1,000 copies are made. And they're usually written by one person, but they can also be written by a small group. As you saw in the video too, there's a neat music connection with them being used in the punk music scene, and they continue to be used by other musicians and artists currently. So why are zines used? They're used to promote ideas and provide a safe place for expression and creativity. And because of this, they've become really popular in groups of underrepresented voices, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, young people, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ+ community, persecuted religious groups, and people with limited economic resources. They're really accessible and really taking off. And like I mentioned, there are many famous Latinx zine artists. So there's a neat connection there too, bringing in the music, bringing in this other art form, and bringing in the Latinx culture. And there are zine fests where people get together and like swap zines. So we are gonna watch a quick video, and you are welcome if you brought paper and scissors to make one. If you want to follow along with this, and then as we do the rest of the workshop, you're welcome to use it for note taking. It can be a fun way to do that. Jot down different ideas as we go. And they're pretty easy to make, which is really nice. And the students get super excited. I'll show you later on some examples of ones that my students made. So if you have paper and scissors, now would be the time to grab those, just like a standard piece of printer paper. And yeah, we will watch this. If you don't have that with you right now, either this whole slideshow presentation will be shared out with you, so you can always go back and do it later.
Zine making, it's so much fun. All you need is one single piece of printer paper, 8.5 by 11 inches. With this, you can make an 8-page zine, believe it or not. So, how you ask? It starts with folding. Fold the paper hot dog way. Open it back up.
I'm gonna just pause for a second for those of you following along. So fold it in half, long way, hot dog way.
Oh, that
Then you're
hot
gonna
dog
open
was
it.
so good, but I'm really hungry for a hamburger now. Good thing I made a barbecue.
So fold it in half the other way.
No.
Pause a second, let you do that. I'm doing one too, just to kind of help with pacing here so that he goes pretty fast in the video. So if you're using this with your students, I would definitely pause because they will not go as fast as he does. So you should have it folded in half both ways now. Notice that he did when he folded the hamburger style. The folds should all be like on the outside or all on the same side. So that will come into play later on and just make it easier to fold. And it's easy enough if you did it the opposite way to just refold it the other way.
It gets a little trickier from here. You gotta fold in the sides to that center line you've just created with your hamburger fold.
A key note on this that students often mix up is you want your paper to be horizontal before you fold in the sides. Some of them try to do it vertical and fold in the sides, and then it doesn't work correctly. So you want to have the paper horizontal as you're folding in these edges to the center. Otherwise your pages will be really skinny.
And one more.
Okay, give you a second to do that. All right.
Time with the hamburger.
So then you're gonna open it back up.
Now we're gonna take our
Fold it in
friends,
half
the
again,
scissors,
hamburger style.
and cut a little slit on the folded edge right to the middle.
So this is a step where students sometimes struggle too. It's really important that they cut the folded edge and not the other edge, or it doesn't work. So
Open it back up, saying
I'll
hello.
give you a second and get that cut done. I gotta do mine too.
To our friend the hot dog one more time.
So you open it back up, fold it in
Stand
half.
it up
Hot
on
dog.
its end.
This part's where it gets a little
Squish it
tricky.
together, then fold all the pages together.
So you've got it like this, and you're basically pushing your edges in. And then you kind of catch them and fold them in on themselves. So you have your book. Depending how nicely you did your folds, I did not do mine that nicely. So I've got a little like extra flap, but you should have your book now. And if you look at it, you've got technically 8 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then your front and back count is 7 and 8. So
You have the skeleton of your 8-page zine. Now it's time to draw. For drawing, you gotta open the whole thing back up
So
again.
he opens it up. You can have your students do that. Mine struggled with doing that and ended up with like upside down pages and stuff. So I actually suggested mine just keep it in the book and do it that way. The advantage of opening it up is if you're using Sharpie or something like he is, then it might bleed through to your other pages. But yeah, so that's what I would recommend. So yeah, so now you have your zine, and you can watch the rest of this. He just goes through and he numbers it. I'll skip ahead so you can see he's writing his pages. Again, it's easier if you just keep it in the book. But then when it's done, you've got
And close it up so that your front
your
cover
finished zine.
is in the front. Then you can flip through. Shoes are a good thing to have. They help you walk on stuff, like broken glass, no problem. Shoes come in different colors. There's a green shoe. They also come in many different shapes. A high heel, a slipper, a sandal. They can be hard to tie, especially if you're a 4-year-old. But for that, there's hook and loop closures. Don't say Velcro, it's a trademark. So don't forget your shoes. That's how easy it is to make an 8-page zine.
So I like showing kind of what the final one was that he did, because it shows students too that it can just be like a fun form of self-expression. I had students coming into me showing me random ones that they made just for fun about other stuff that they liked. So I think that was kind of because we watched this showing. It doesn't have to be a formal thing, it can be just for fun as well. So we're going to do just a quick brainstorm of how do you think you could use zines in your classroom. So I'll stop sharing for a second, and if you have ideas, feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat. And remember, this doesn't have to be related to Latinx culture. It could be something else you're thinking about as music teachers that this might be a helpful tool for.
I'll jump in with one. I could see this as families of instruments.
Definitely.
It's a real easy way to do it, or different styles of music or different performers.
Yes.
2-page spread for each might fit. If I asked the students to focus on jazz composers or Latinx performers or something like that, that would work.
Definitely. I see we got a couple of people coming to the chat. We got Kelsey saying note names. Valerie suggested different composers. Definitely. It can be a fun tool for assessing also. To kids, this doesn't feel like assessment, if they get to make a fun book, putting the information in it, as opposed to like taking a written test or a quiz or something. So yeah. All right, let's keep cruising. Oh, it looks like we had another idea too. Oh, favorite song, use it to explain why. We'll talk more about that too. That was one of the things I used this for with my students. So a little bit of just history about Hispanic and Latinx people in Wisconsin. I'm going to peek at my notes for this. I do not have all this memorized. The earliest known Hispanic and Latinx encounters with Wisconsin happened during the fur trade era in the 18th century. Spanish officials supported the American cause during the American Revolution, assisting in raids of British supplies stored at Prairie du Chien in Wisconsin. The Spanish-speaking communities of Wisconsin date back to 1910. People of Mexican heritage began to settle here after the Mexican Revolution. Many others came throughout the 1900s to work in various farming and manufacturing industries. Since then, other Hispanic and Latinx groups have migrated to the state in search of economic opportunities or political asylum. Records show that about 9,000 Mexican Americans lived in Milwaukee during the 1920s, but the Great Depression caused many of them to lose employment and return home. The first known group of Puerto Ricans came to Wisconsin in the 1940s, and many came to earn money to bring back to their native Puerto Rico. Most of these workers found jobs in tanneries, foundries, and factories. During World War II, there was an increased need for food and agricultural workers, and the Emergency Farm Labor Program of 1943, also known as the Bracero Treaty Year Program, allowed for temporary employment migration from foreign countries to the United States and lasted until about 1964. And today, Hispanic and Latinx Americans live in every single county in Wisconsin. And in addition to large Mexican and Puerto Rican communities, Wisconsin is also home to political refugees and other immigrants from Cuba, El Salvador, Colombia, and Nicaragua. And as of July 1st, 2019, according to the US Census Bureau, 7.1% of Wisconsin's population identifies Hispanic or Latinx. And the biggest populations in Wisconsin are located in Milwaukee, Dane, Racine, Kenosha, and Brown counties. So I know that was interesting for me to find out just a little bit more about kind of the history of Latinx people and how they played a role in Wisconsin history. So we're gonna start digging into the actual Resound curriculum now that we have kind of all this background information. So this is the main song that is featured for the curriculum. It's called El Niño que quiere jugar, which means the child that wants to play. Oh, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, but just a disclaimer, you know, obviously, as I'm presenting this, I am a white Caucasian woman. And I know when I was first asked to work on this curriculum, that my initial instinct was, I'm not really qualified to do that. You know, it should be a Latinx person doing this. But I think it's important for us as educators to sometimes step out of our comfort zone for the sake of our students. So yeah, it made me a little bit nervous, a little bit uncomfortable to work on this when this isn't my background, this isn't my personal life experience. But I think it's just an example for our students that sometimes, you know, we need to embrace things that are different and step out of our comfort zone for the sake of helping everyone to feel valued and included. And yeah, so yes, so this is the song. Just a couple tips. If you do want to play this full video for your students, it is a longer video clip. They do a lot of improvisation, which causes the song to be longer. So you may want to consider, if you're doing this with younger students, having some more active listening strategies during the video. Maybe things like having them stand or do a different action when they hear the chorus. Maybe raising their hand when they think improvisation is happening. We'll listen to it and we'll see at the end if you have other possible strategies that you might think of that would be good ones to keep students engaged. Doesn't look like it's gonna let me go full screen. I will put the closed captions on here, maybe.
The song is
No, but it's not gonna let me.
definitely about children.
But those translations are available in the Educator guide
they
as
have all
well.
this energy to play. Play obviously not just for human children, also for like baby lions and baby wolves. Like they're playing all the time, and there's got to be something inside of playing that's crucial for development and crucial for us, for survival and to thrive. The chorus of it says, "Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar." Like, so let yourself be led or taken away by that kid that wants to play. There's a rhythm that we use a whole lot, and it's kind of central to like Latin American music, which is called son, and it's originally from Cuba. And there's two types of song. You know, there's a song that has a 2-3 clave, which is like 1 2 1 2 3 4 da 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 da, you know. And then, but then on this last trip to Cuba, man, so many songs we heard like are swinging on the other side of the clave, which is the 3-2, which is like 1 2 da 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 1 2 1 2 3 1 2.
This clave thing is something.
Sorry. This is a great place to maybe pause the music with your students and just have them try that rhythm. Again, just kind of keeping them engaged, having them connect to the things that are being said here.
Crucial in the music from Latin America, because the influence of the rhythm, all the music from Latin America is from Africa, right? It's just an equation, mathematical equation that everything, all the music in Latin America, everything that has drums on it, it comes from that equation that is the clave, la clave.
This is the actual song now that they're performing.
Cuando el sol aparece, este niño amanece de la cama corriendo a jugar. El día imaginando hasta la noche cuando no va a la cama por querer jugar. Quisiera ser igual que tú y no tener que comprender sobre el trabajo y el deber y sobre vivir y comer, pero no me puedo engañar, tú y yo algo tan similar, lo mío es la música, lo tuyo es jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere 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 jugar. Mira lo que lindo juega, que disfrutar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Esta es la edad para imaginar, fantasía, mira jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Saca de adentro esa infancia, mira ponte nada más. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Quisiera ser igual que tú y no tener que comprender sobre el trabajo y el deber para sobrevivir y comer, pero no me puedo engañar, tú y yo algo tan similar, lo mío es la música, lo tuyo es jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Agua. déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Este es todo el tiempo que tienes para jugar con ella. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Sácalo afuera para la calle. Mira que vea todo lo que hay. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. No le pongas al frente la tele. La pantalla no da nada. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Si es un niño nada más, déjalo solo jugar. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar. Ah, déjate, ahora ven y juega. Ahora ven y juega. Ahora ven y juega. Vente pa' acá, vaya. Ahora ven y juega. Juega, juega otro poquito conmigo. Porque a mí me gusta vacilar. Ahora ven y juega. Cuando tú vienes a jugar, a mí me gusta más. Porque mira, a mí me gusta ser un niño. Ven y juega. Juega, juega, juega otra vez. Ahora ven y juega. Pásame los jugueticos. Pásame un carrito. Ahora ven y juega. La pelotica de ping pong. Ahora ven y juega. O ese trencito hace chu chu chu. Ahora ven y juega. Oye, mira cómo me gustas tú. Cuando eres feliz, mira, juega. Ahora ven y juega. 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 Yo quiero ir a Bayamo. Ah, montando en coche. Porque mira que llévame contigo. Montando en coche. Que yo me quiero ir otro ratico montando en coche. Me quiero ir para Bayamo. Montando en coche. Para jugar. Ahora ven y juega. Ahora ven y juega. Como me gusta la vida. Ahora ven y juega. Sin responsabilidad todos los días. Ven y juega. Solo quiero jugar como un niño. Ahora ven y juega. Vámonos. Ahora ven y juega. Déjate llevar por el niño que quiere jugar.
All right. So yeah, so that's the song. So thoughts, like I said, it is a little bit long. So if you have kids not used to listening to longer pieces of music, this could be a lot for them. So anyone have any ideas of other ways to maybe make this longer song more accessible to your students? It really leads itself to movement. I don't know about you, but I know when I listen to it, I'm here like rocking out. So even just doing some simple movement along with it, maybe during certain sections, that also would help the students to feel the changes. They play around a lot with kind of meter changes and things like that, and that can be a good thing for students to be feeling and internalizing, whether you're elementary general or instrumental even too, kind of feeling those different meter changes. Yeah, other thoughts?
As far as movement, there is a chorus part to this. And even though they don't have the words in front of them, you could teach one movement that, you know, you can groove out to however you want to in the other parts, but that one movement, everybody puts their hands up, and that would help them learn something about the format of it. And actually there are two choruses, but the first one is the easiest one to find, and then the last one just keeps repeating at the end. So you could give them some freedom, you could give them some assigned movements, and then lead those assigned movements at the time.
Yes, definitely. Jake just put in the chat two definitely using movement with it. Maybe during their improvisation sections, have students dance or solo dance. Darren says having students improvise maybe one family at a time. For example, all claves, then all hand drums, then all maracas. So doing instrumental improvisation along with it. Jake also said maybe returning to a group dance or assigned movement during the chorus. Yeah, the lyrics and chorus for this are available in the enrichment guide, which we'll look at next. So you could definitely teach your students that chorus ahead of time and have them like sing, dance, play along with it. You know, for those of you that are instrumental, they could learn the notes for that and maybe play along with that. Yeah, just different ways to keep them maybe connected and engaged. I think it's a good thing for students to get used to listening to longer pieces of music like this. We're in the day and age of instant gratification, where students want, you know, really short TikTok videos and things where you have 30 seconds to get your whole idea across. And I think it's good for them to have to kind of listen and think and be mentally focused for longer amounts of time. So this is a good maybe gateway way to do that with them. Jazz can be another great way of doing that. Yeah, we'll keep moving. So, so the Educator Enrichment Guide, I'm going to just switch over so you can kind of look at what is included in this. So it looks like this. And it has a nice organized table of contents. You can download and print this really easily. So it has some background information about our musicians. It has a link right in it to the song itself, which is really handy. Just short biography about the musicians and their background. There are learning goals, so kind of the main learning goals, the different elements of music covered in this. So as far as this song, it's in a major key. It has a mix of steps and skips. The rhythms used, there's a lot of syncopation, and it's really emphasized in instrumental breaks and improvisation sections. As far as harmony, there are open and broken chords in the guitar accompaniment. There's also vocal and guitar layering happening. Texture-wise, you have the vocal melody with the guitar and the cajon accompaniment. As far as timbre, you have guitar, cajon, and voice. The form is a verse and refrain with improvised solos and breaks throughout. And as far as expression, it's a quick tempo with with a few different dynamic changes. So for those of you that have to give your standards or your objectives to your administrators, ta-da, it's all here for you. This curriculum makes it really easy to have all of that. Here are the lyrics. Just keep in mind, there's a lot of improvisation that happens in this song. So it's kind of interesting. This is another activity you can do with your students. Have them try to kind of follow along with the lyrics and see how much it actually matches with the song. You'll notice that they kind of branch off and do their own thing a lot. And I'm sorry the subtitles, the closed captions weren't working, because if you can watch it with those, it does actually translate what they're saying throughout the video. And so it's fun to see kind of some of the playful things, the childlike things that they talk about in the improvised parts as well. So I strongly recommend you turn those on for your students to get to see as well. And yep, you can see down here, like Kathy mentioned, there are the 2 choruses. So that you could definitely teach those to your students and talk about those lyrics. Yeah. So moving on, there are different outcomes, strategies, and assessments included in this. The main theme of this is that the playfulness of the melody and rhythms creates a fusion of different Latinx cultural traditions and brings out a feeling of nostalgia for childhood pleasures. So that's kind of what all these activities are getting at. So you have different outcomes, like that students will create and perform improvised music. So you can really use this as a tool to teach students about improvisation. There are a ton of other great improvisation resources on the PBS website. Just a shout out to them. I know before I started working on this curriculum, I had no idea that there were so many amazing videos on the PBS website. So definitely go check that out and use them in your classroom. Yeah, they're really, really good ones. You can use instruments to create rhythmic improvisations with your students, do things like call and response, and then having the students kind of take turns leading and improvising. You can have the class get to try using different cultural instruments and doing improvisation with those. You can have the students listen to the song and identify improvisation, and try to figure out like when that's happening, how it's being done. Are they improvising together? Are they taking turns? Again, having students kind of listening a little more critically and figuring out really what's going on in the music. And then for advanced students, you can even make other cultural connections, have them listen to improvisation across a variety of different cultures and genres. Bring in that jazz, bring in blues, bring in music from other cultures as well. And then have students compare and contrast what's being heard and share it with the class. There's different assessment ideas here too. We won't go through everything because you can go in and print this out and use it. But it does kind of the same thing also for knowledge outcome. So the knowledge outcome, the primary one is that students will identify Latinx percussion instruments and recognize Latinx syncopated rhythms that are commonly played on these instruments. So you could have your students research the different instruments from the different Latinx culture, different countries, and then identify in the recording which ones they're actually hearing in there. You can talk to them about how some of these different instruments are played, maybe even bring in a guest performer or artist to play a cajon or one of these other instruments on it. I know it's tough during the pandemic. It's harder to bring in community resources, but there are lots of really great video resources out there as well. You can play around with different examples of syncopation, really playing with those accented offbeats. I know syncopation in the elementary level in general music is sometimes kind of a trickier concept to teach, and this song does it really well. This song is so catchy, it gets stuck in your head, and once that melody is kind of bouncing around in there, I think it's easier for students to kind of grasp those rhythms that go with it. You have that clave rhythm you can bring in. Yeah, we'll keep cruising along. Again, more assessment suggestions for those of you that need to give those to your students or your principals. For affective outcomes, students will explore personal connections between music and childhood nostalgia. So just finding ways to kind of talk about their childhood. And it's hard, when you're dealing with students that are still kids, but you can talk about, back when you were, if you're doing this with like your 4th, 5th, 6th graders, like what was it like back in kindergarten or preschool, when you were younger? What are some of your memories from there? Like, what are some of your favorite parts of playing? What were your favorite toys to play with? Things like that. What was your favorite music to listen to? And when I put in that context, that made it easier for my students to relate to. You could also bring in different artwork from other artists that have captured their childhood memories. There are some of those included in the PBS Resound resources page, which, like I said, I will show you in a little bit how to access that. And then in the lyrics, it talks about put your faith in your passion and you'll discover what waits for you. And you could talk to your students about how Juan and Richard really followed their passion for making music, and talk to your students about what their own passions are, and kind of bring in that SEL connection of, maybe outside of music, what are things that you love? Where do you see your life taking you? What do you want to do with your life? And that can be a pretty powerful discussion to have as well. Again, there's here at the end, there's more extensions. So like other bonus ideas of things you can do. Here is your full list of standards in case you need all those. Again, make your administration happy or do your educator effectiveness. You got it all here. As far as resources, we'll get to those in a little bit. There are some great photos in here too of the musicians, which are fun for the students to get to see. PBS really did an amazing job with just the production quality of these videos. They're just beautiful. And the students really enjoy getting to see that. So I'm gonna switch back over here now. So I just want to show you some examples of student work. Actually, let's just take, stop sharing for a second. Let's take like a 5-minute bathroom drink break, just because we've been sitting and talking now for almost an hour. So if you want to just quick stretch, we'll come back in just a couple minutes and keep going with talking about specific student examples and how you maybe can use this in your classroom. All right, we'll get started. Hopefully people are back. If not, we'll get them caught up when they do come back. So let's look at some student work. So these are examples from my students of different zines that they made. You can see it's a mix, and I'll talk about the 2 different kinds that we did here. Here's a couple more of them. So one of the projects we did was one that I forget who mentioned it. One of you mentioned doing a personal playlist project with your student. And that was a really fun way for me to get to know my students a little bit better and kind of the music that was meaningful to them. So what I did for this project is I had them create a playlist of like 10 to 12 songs that had personal significance for them. And then they had to write liner notes of why that song was on their list, why it made their list. And a lot of them didn't know what liner notes were. And so we talked about that. And those were actually my favorite part. I learned a lot about them and kind of their family background or personal history. And yeah, so then they had to make the zine representing some songs from their playlist, but I left it very open-ended as far as how they could do that, what that would look like. And you'll see, I'll show you these clips. You can kind of see how different the different ones they came up with were. So here's one of them. So something kind of associated different fun pictures with different songs. They did put some notes about what the song meant to them in this one. Baby Shark was in there. And yeah, a couple of these were ones from school music class, which I thought that was cool that they made the cut. Yeah, and here's another one. So this one, they kind of pictured songs as colors, which is interesting. So they didn't write as much of their liner notes in here, but they came up with some really cool collages to represent the different songs that they chose. And it was very, very different student to student what their final zines looked like. So you could really see their individual personalities coming through in that. The other project we did with these was more specifically related to Latin American music. So they had to research a Latin American musical style or genre, and then put together a zine to represent the one that they had researched. So this first one, they did mambo music. So I looked at where it comes from, who performs it, who are some famous performers, what are the instruments used in it. Fun fact about it, what does the flag look like? Some of them wanted to include that. Here's another one. This is on reggae and reggaeton music. So So you've got the Jamaican flag. They talked about how it originated in Jamaica. They found some pictures of different musicians that they wanted to include in there. The instruments, some fun facts. And that was that one. So it was neat to see what they found interesting, and them kind of owning the one they had picked. I let them pick which music style or genre from Latin America they wanted to research. I just put up a list of the different kinds, and they didn't know yet what was what and where it was from or anything about it. They just kind of picked it based on what sounded interesting. And it was fun to see them exploring these a little bit deeper and learning more about it. As far as resources we used for this project, I don't know if you've heard of the music workshop curriculum. That's another free curriculum that's out there for educators. They have really great, diverse videos on a wide variety of topics, including some on Latin American music. So I put those together in a slideshow for my students, and kind of broke it up into 2 sections. So, and listed at the top, like which ones were in it. And so the kids could click through and find their different section. And figure out, sorry, there's...
The instruments of today's mambo include trumpets, saxophones, double bass,
and so on. So they could go through, they could find this, and that kind of helped give them the information. Again, they're listening to other examples of it, just kind of expanding their knowledge of these different cultures. And like I said, these are free resources that are out there too. So take advantage of them. Yeah, and then they had to figure out these research questions. So what is the name of your music style or genre? What country does it come from? What instruments are used? Who are some of the famous performers of this music? And then what's a fun fact? So you can see how they took that information and put it into their zines. Here are some other resources. This is the Resound website and the compilation of tons of resources in here. So these are ones that are referenced in a lot of the curriculum, but they're all together in one really handy database. So you don't have to go searching for these, they're here. So you can also search or sort this. So you can sort it by culture, and can skip ahead to, you know, if you're just looking for the Latinx ones. If you're searching for a certain kind of resource, you can put that in here. Maybe you're looking for like instruments. So you could find, okay, there's 4 resources here that specifically talk about instruments. Notice if you add a S or take away S, it may open up more, so you can play around with that. But this is super handy to have. And you'll see these referenced in the curriculum. So like I said, they're here, come grab them, use them. The next one, that's just the link to the music workshop thing I was just talking about. There's also a really great panel discussion that happened with the Resound artists that Kathy led. Ta-da! So it's about an hour-long discussion. And you can see, I'll just kind of click through randomly, that they had the different musicians and kind of hearing their unique perspective. And yeah, so it's really neat for your students to kind of see these people live in their homes talking about this music. There were some really good questions and answers that came up, and kind of talking to about, like, this took place during the pandemic. So how is the pandemic influencing these people as performers, and things like that. So definitely just another really great resource that's out there for you to use. And then I compiled, these are a bunch of different children's books that are about Latinx artists. So there is My Name is Celia, that talks about Celia Cruz, Drum Dream Girl. All these are based on actual people, and just really great ways to, again, bring in literature, bring in these different cultures, talk about these different actual musicians. You can bring in, there's a lot of cool YouTube clips of these different performers that you can show your students. And we have so many good resource databases available to us these days with things like YouTube available, to really expand our horizons and our students' horizons. You know, when I was a student not that long ago, well, now longer ago, I guess, these things weren't available. You know, we didn't learn about music like this in music class. We sat and we sang out of a textbook, and that was what music was. And I still loved it, but I think we have the potential now as educators to do so much more. We just have all these amazing resources at our fingertips. So take advantage of them and bring these cultures to your students. And how powerful is it for your students, especially those that are Latinx, to see people that look like them, you know, to have that representation. That representation is so important. And they need to be seen as part of your curriculum. And not just, you know, during Hispanic Heritage Month, which there's nothing wrong with doing lessons during Hispanic, but this should be part of your curriculum all year long. Here's some more. A lot of these are biography type books. These three at the bottom are not, these are fiction ones, but they are about protagonists who are Latinx. So those are fun ones to maybe include also. This bottom corner one was actually written by Ricky Martin, so that's kind of fun. Another great way to bring in some of these diverse musicians, and it could be the ones from the Resound curriculum, it could just be other musicians that are out there, is doing something like a Musician of the Month program. I just really started to do this with my students this year. I had good intentions in the past of doing it, and then it always kind of petered out because I got too busy. But this year I made it a goal to really do this and do this right. And my students have been so excited about it. It's been really eye-opening to me also to learn more about these really incredible musicians that I didn't know that much about. So I've been learning a lot too. And even some of our education assistants that come to music with students have commented about how they're learning about these musicians, and they go home and they tell their families, and it's just really great getting to share this information with your students. So I can show you an example of what this looks like every month when I do it with my students. And like I said, you could totally take this curriculum and put it into something like this, or you can use this as an extension to include other musicians. So for example, my first one we did this year was Esperanza Spalding. So I just give the students some background information about her, kind of her life history. It's fun for them to be able to connect to that. We had good discussion about like what's a Grammy and things like that. Then we watched some different clips. And then I always end with a quote from the musician. And I also have these facts and things printed up and put on a bulletin board in my classroom so students can kind of refer back to them. And they get super excited every month. They've been coming in and they'll be like, it's a new month. Like, who's our new musician going to be? I also have these different diverse musicians on the backs of my students' chairs. It helps them, especially the younger ones or some of my special needs students, to better locate which chair is theirs in the context of the room. But it also is just showing these students that representation. These are musicians that look like you, that are out there making music today. I think almost all of the ones that I've talked about are still alive, still making music. So they're relevant, they're current, the students can really connect and relate to it. And they've asked some really incredible questions. One of the other ones I did was Evelyn Glennie. She is a deaf Scottish percussionist. And in one of the videos, she was on Sesame Street. And one of my students, after we watched the clip of her with these Sesame Street characters, raised her hand and asked, well, if she's deaf, you know, how does she know what the puppets are saying, because she can't, we talked about how she could read people's lips and things, and she's like, but they're puppets, like they don't have lips. And that hadn't ever even occurred to me. And so we had a discussion about how, you know, there were probably people like prompting behind or words behind saying what the puppets were saying, but just kind of encouraging students to have these deeper levels of thinking about these musicians and different types of music. And it's been a really fun and exciting process. And I've been amazed. I wasn't sure, like I said, how it would go over with my students, because it is a lot of kind of sit and get and listening to facts and listening to videos. But they've been just mesmerized and wanting more and taking it with them. And there's so many inspiring, incredible musicians out there that we don't know about. So what a great opportunity for us as educators to learn more and then share that knowledge with our students. So yeah, just another kind of fun direction you could take this if you wanted to. We did Lin-Manuel Miranda, if you're looking at Latinx one, and that was a huge hit with the students. And it was cool seeing the connections they were making. Like some of them were like, oh, we saw him in Vivo, like we know him from that. And others now, you know, had seen him in Mary Poppins Returns, and some had seen him in Hamilton. And so, yeah, just bringing in those connections again can be very powerful. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of, we won't do workout groups because there aren't that many of us, but we're going to do some brainstorming as a group. And we'll use a Jamboard, and I'll show you how that works in just a second. But I want to kind of get your ideas, because we've got a community here of educators with different experience and different knowledge. You may know a lot more than me in some of these areas. And I'd love to hear what you have to share. So there will have 3 different main questions that we're going to be considering. The first would be, how do you use Latinx music in your classroom already? And then what are some more extension ideas that could maybe be used with this curriculum or Latinx cultural exploration? And then the last question is, what do you still wish you knew more about in regards to Latinx music or culture? So we are going to go into Jamboard. So if you haven't, oops, I clicked the wrong one, sorry. That's last year's. I'll share that with you too, so you can see all the great ideas that people had last year when I did this presentation. So if you haven't used Jamboard before, how this works is over on the left here. You're going to click a sticky note. You can change the color. And if we can color code these, that will be kind of helpful. So the pink for what you're already doing, the yellow for extension ideas, and then the blue for what you want to know more about. So you can change the color by clicking up here. And then you just type in, like, I want to know, this is something I want to know more about. How to connect with Latinx people in my community and use them as a resource in my classroom. And then when you're done, you can do save. It'll drop it on here. You can do cancel, and then you can grab this and move it around, and you can just keep adding more. You should, oh, it looks like I don't have it set to edit. So give me just a second. And I'll drop this link in the chat, and you should be able to come in and add stuff to it. And I'll stop sharing because you'll be able to see this. All right. Now I'll reshare, I guess, because then if it's not working for you, you can still see what other people are adding. Yeah, just take a couple of minutes to think about these 3 questions, and then we'll go through some of the ideas that people come up with. Like I said, we can look at some of the ones from last year too. There were some really good ideas shared there as well. Feel free to, if you're like, I have a question or an idea and it doesn't really fit into any of these, like grab one of those different color post-it notes and add it too. I don't want to have these limit your ideas. I see lots of good ones coming in. Y'all are people after my own heart, like organizing the color coded notes. Let's take a couple more minutes to do this. And yeah, if you think of more stuff too, you can add it afterwards. But I definitely want to talk about these because there's some really great things that are being put up here. This is like the meat of the session. This is my favorite part because this is where I get ideas too. And selfishly steal them to use with my own students. So thank you. Okay, you can keep adding stuff. I'm just going to start going over some of these. So as far as what you're already doing in your classroom, we've got Composer of the Month happening, regularly programming Latin music with jazz ensemble, and then identifying the Latinx instruments already in the classroom, maracas, claves, etc. Also getting beyond the percussion, but the instruments that Juan and Richard perform in bands, what instruments are also out there to show. As far, and listening to Latinx music that's available. Yeah, there's lots of now really great music resources available. More and more music teachers are making like body percussion videos or rhythm play-alongs and things that are all on YouTube that are super easy to bring into your classroom and do with your students as a quick like movement break or rhythm assessment or just a fun other music activity. And the more you bring this music into your classroom, the more validity you're giving to it. And that's so important for your students to see that and experience that. Extension ideas. The song features is about games, maybe having a game day from their own cultures. That sounds super fun and amazing. Yep, there's kind of a similar one here. The song is about young people games. Could older people come in, staff, faculty, administration, custodians, parents, grandparents, etc., and share games that they played or maybe remember from their childhood? That would be really fun. I love the idea of that community connection within your school community as well. Choosing rhythms from this song and having kids play them and then alternate with improvisation in between the repeated learned rhythms. Maybe connect this performance with Mavu's performance. For those of you that don't know, that is one of the other Resound curriculums. That's the Hmong American one. And that one really focuses about family importance and what we do together. So kind of comparing, contrasting what both or those different musicians have to say. Spending a day or more learning different Latin dance steps. So jazz students can feel the music in a different way. Yes, again, there are lots of really great tutorials out there on YouTube now of different Latinx dance and music and all kinds of things. I know one of my colleagues did a really incredible Latinx dance unit with her students this year where they learned some of the different types. And it was all just stuff she found on YouTube. What do you want to know more about? Love to learn more about more resources for secondary instrumental groups. Was very interested in mariachi, but yeah, the instrumentation is the best for my school. That's definitely tricky. And that's something that's helpful for us to know too. We can put a plug in to maybe see if we can find more resources to add to the PBS that might appeal more to that secondary instrumental as well. How can I get students more comfortable sharing their own culture of music? And how do I find extra time with that, with how many students we see? That's definitely hard. And like I said, doing the personal playlist project was a really wonderful way to have my students get to kind of share that a little bit more. And the liner notes especially kind of gave me some of that insight that I had never gotten to find out from them before. You know, when you have sometimes 30 or more students in a class, it's hard to have those one-on-one conversations and learn those things about them. And this was a really great project to do that. Where can I find traditional folk music and games from Latinx communities? That's something, we'll save this. Like I said, we can look and see if we can find, I'll do some digging. Maybe Darren and Kathy can do some digging too, and we can see if we can maybe add more of those resources as well. I know some of the music companies are starting to come out with really good resource books. Like West Music has been having some more recent ones that do bring in some of these different folk music and games. I know John Vira just had a world music book that came out. The world music drumming curriculum has some, there's a lot of it is African drumming, but some of their side resource books do have ones that have some of those more Latin style rhythms. So that's another one to check out for that. Yeah, but like I said, I can see if we can maybe do some more digging on our end too to find more to make available to you. And looking now in this day and age of like Facebook and internet, there are lots of great people out there that can help answer these questions too. So if you're in any of those like music communities, put these questions out to there. There may be people that have their own ones that they've found that have worked really well that they would love to share. So yeah, I can quick show, like I said, the ones from, I can show you quick some of the ideas from last year because there were some good ones in there too that came up. It's not gonna let me click on it nicely. So we had like choral teachers looking for connecting dance styles with like musical styles. We had people talking about students talking about their own cultural identity, more about interacting with people in the community. Apparently there's a children's musician called 123 Andres that incorporates Spanish language music. And they talked about using those like for transitions and things in their classroom. Doing like a folk dance unit, but with Latinx styles of dance. There's a children's book called Sing With Me or Canta Conmigo that has kids songs in English and Spanish. So there's another resource out there. Like I said, I have this linked in the PowerPoint or in the Google slideshow that will be shared with you. So you'll have all these too. Yeah, children's literature resources abound on folk tales, stories, families, cultural items, even using them with middle school or junior high students for individual reads or teacher sharing. Yeah, and looks like Darren put, there's some more resources at the UCC in Milwaukee. It's an entire school and community across all ages providing context, resources, and educational tools. So check that out also. So yeah, all this is out there. I know sometimes it's tough to dig through everything. So that's why hopefully tonight and other resources are, a good way to kind of dip your feet in the water and get some ideas that you can hopefully immediately get to take back to your classrooms and your students. So yeah, does anyone, we're kind of nearing the end of our time here. Does anyone have any questions or other ideas, things they want to share? I can stop sharing my screen for a second. Thoughts, things that you want more of that we didn't touch upon tonight? I know it was a ton of information dump and I talked really fast through a lot of it to give you as much as I could. But I really wanted to kind of give you the full span of what's in the curriculum, but also a bunch of different outside ideas that you can also hopefully take and use.
Well, I can't emphasize enough the resources that she showed you on the WSMA PBS Wisconsin resource list. That constantly changes. So when people find things, they send it to me and I add them on. And I regularly check that so that we can keep updating it, getting new resources, and it's current. So you should be able to access them. And the more we add to that, the better off we'll all be. So I look forward to hearing from all of you, but I'm encouraging you to reach out to that. I'll be doing a workshop later on with some of those things, connecting it to PBS Learning Media. But I'll talk more about that later. But thanks for sharing that, Skylar. That's really powerful stuff.
Like I said, I didn't know it was there. I was like, whoa, I should be using this more because there's so much stuff that I think we go digging for on our own and it already exists there. So save yourself some time and energy and check there first.
That's what I wanted to thank you for, was the resources that are already vetted. I feel like when I Google stuff, I'm just going down a rabbit hole of unknown, and I feel the same way for the kids. So now I have like some real nice building blocks to try some of these activities with. So thank you.
Awesome. That's what we're trying to do. I know that's so hard. There's so much out there that is not authentic and not good. And you have to be careful because you don't want to misrepresent these cultures. So I'm glad that we could hopefully give you some good things that you can take back. Any other thoughts, ideas? Sorry, my cat is crashing the meeting right now.
Well, I will say this right now, if you don't mind, Skylar. I hope that you really enjoyed this workshop tonight. Skylar has so many resources for us. And I am so looking forward to seeing many of you come to the other workshops as well. They'll all be recorded. Register for them, even if you can't attend, so that you can get at those. But each one builds on the other. So it's very helpful. You don't have to attend all of them, but all of them will really do give you great ideas, and they're all taking different formats. If you want to know more about each one of the workshops coming up for each of the curriculum, I've put it in the chat, and feel free to register for as many as you'd like. They're free, paid generously by support. So please take advantage of those. And the schedule is there so you can figure out what you want to do. The other thing is that our curriculum writers, we have 2 of them in here, and myself as an editor and also helping write. We won a national award for this whole series. And we are thrilled to be with PBS Wisconsin, that we received a public media award for education and the resources provided there. So when you talk about vetted resources, we've done our job. And the cool part is that we are now in the process of doing 2 more videos and possibly 4. So we are going to be adding to the resources, adding to the materials. So you'll hear more about that, but the more of the input that people provide, what you're looking for or resources you're looking for, the better off we'll all be. So you'll hear more about that in the future. So I'll stop with the commercial, but register and cheer on the people who have worked with it and those who use it. It's great.
Darren, do you know what those will be about yet? Have they picked the musicians for those or not yet?
We are in the fast-paced program right now, narrowing down, first of all, what genres we want and what cultures we want to represent. Nothing has been firmed up yet, but I know that it's a wider variety of cultures, and our goal is to reach an area throughout the state so that we have new areas and new types, some that are familiar and some that are definitely not. And we'll have a good mix of performers as well. So it's in the works, and we really should know more literally in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. That's so exciting. All right. As we wrap up, I'm going to just leave you with a quote. There is a video in here. This is one of the other interview videos. I forget. Let me see quick how. Oh, Will, for time's sake, you can come in and watch this later. But this was one of the quotes I pulled for one of their interviews. Richard McConkie said, there's so much wisdom in the things we have in common and the universals, but I would say that there's just as much, if not more, wisdom inside our differences. So, you know, it's important to find those commonalities that we share, but it's also really important to celebrate what makes us unique, what makes us different. And we all bring our unique perspective to the classroom. And I think that's what makes our music classroom such a amazing place for our students, for us to be. You know, we're creating a community of different cultures and different knowledge and different life experience. And we have so much to learn from each other. So take this knowledge, take it back to your students, share it with them, have them share with you. That's one of my favorite parts of being a teacher, is how much I learn from my students every day. My favorite moments as a teacher are ones where they ask me questions that I can't answer and we figure it out together. And I hope that this can give you more of those experiences with your students as well. And I thank you so much for giving your time this evening to be here, and for wanting to do this for your students. It's so important to have that representation, and I know it will mean a lot to your students that you were here and learning more about this, and that you're taking it back to your classroom. So thank you, thank you, thank you. My contact information is in the slideshow that'll be shared out. Feel free to contact me if you have questions about anything, and I will be happy to help or direct you to someone that can help if I can't. And yeah, thanks again, and have a great rest of your school year. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Skylar.